Good morning and welcome to the Return Homestead. My name is Mike and my wife Marty and I homestead 6 acres in northeastern Kentucky. Today we're just going to take a walk around the homestead and see how we've been doing since we got onto the property just a little over a month and a half ago. Wow, it doesn't actually seem like we've been here only a month and a half, but it's only been a month and a half. We haven't been here that long, and in that time we have managed to first get everything unpacked. Kudos to my wife. She did a fantastic job. All the boxes are out of the house. Everything got unpacked almost immediately, at least here in the house. Now, I have to admit the barn's not done. I've been busy taking care of animals and trying to get used to some issues that we have in our new barn that we're going to have to deal with. There's also some problems with the storage buildings, and I'll take a look at those with you here in just a minute. We'll talk about some of the long-term projects we have coming up that will finally let me get at least the shop and the barn fully unpacked. But the house is done. It's not only unpacked, but we've also installed track lighting in the kitchen. There wasn't enough light in there. There was only a single ceiling fan, and it had 4 tiny little bulbs coming off of it. And that's just not enough light to light up the kitchen. We've installed the track lighting and have plenty of light, not only down to the countertops, but all the way down to the floor. It's nice and bright in there now. You guys are going to see that coming up on some of the videos that Marty's going to be doing there in the kitchen. So be watching out for those. You'll get to see how well that lighting system does work to get everything lit up in there. And we've also decorated for Christmas. Thanksgiving was here. That is our tradition, is to eat Thanksgiving dinner and then to decorate the tree. So we went and brought all the decorations down. We got the tree put up. We got everything decorated and ready to go. So we are staying in tune with the season. We want to make sure that we do our celebrating along with everyone else in the time when it's appropriate. So we're going to make sure we have a good and Merry Christmas here on the Return Homestead. So we wanted to get those decorations up early. And we've gotten all the artwork up on the walls. A lot of these, actually vast majority of them, are Marty's. So those are her canvases that are hanging on the walls around here. We are our best collectors, and Marty has plenty of her canvases around. We've gotten them hung up as well. So we're settling into our new circumstances quite well. And we're very happy to be out here. And there's really not a lot that can happen that's going to detract from that as far as we're concerned. We are a homestead. We are homesteaders. We are ready for the unexpected. But not everything has been perfect since we moved in. We've had lots of complications. There have been problems with animals from the neighbors coming over and killing our livestock, and we've had to manage and mitigate that damage. We've also had some problems with lighting, which we've already talked about. And then just before the snow started last night, about 20 minutes before it started coming down, Marty and I are sitting and relaxing here in the living room, and we're enjoying a roaring fire in our buck stove. This is a propane buck stove, and it was going along gangbusters. It was about 72 degrees inside of the house, and suddenly the fireplace just stopped. So the stove just quit working. I've been looking at it and investigating it a little bit, trying to figure out exactly what's going on with this thing so we can get it up and running again. It is a little cold in the house. That's why we have the space heaters out. That's all we've got for heat at the moment. It's not terribly cold, so we're not terribly uncomfortable or anything, but we do want to get this fixed. Our plan was not to keep this stove. We're not big fans of propane, and I'm certainly not a big fan of a faux fireplace like this. If you're going to use propane for heat, then put in a propane heater. Get the most efficient heater you can, not the most attractive one. It doesn't matter. If you want a fireplace and you want to see burning logs, then fine. Build a fireplace and go cut down a tree and burn some logs. But for gas, at least for my taste, I would prefer to have just a plain and simple heater. So we've got to do something about this. We have a couple of options. I can, of course, call a technician to come out and fix this. That's what the good folks at Buck Stove suggested we should do. And we're about to take the time to make some phone calls and see if you can even find a said technician. I'll at least ask the questions. But in the end, we need to be able to fix this thing ourselves. I need to understand this stove at least as well as any technician would and be able to make the repairs on it. Yes, this is a propane stove. I have worked in propane. I do have some training. If you haven't, don't mess around with the dragon in the bottle until you do get educated. Make sure you know what propane is, how it functions, and how to keep yourself safe. That information is known by the propane companies, and it can be known by you. It's just a simple matter of looking it up. But once we have that experience, then it should be possible for anybody really to repair anything about this heater. I know it looks complicated because they've made it look like a fireplace, but it's really just a heater. There are only a couple of moving parts inside of the machine. The vast majority of this is not moving parts. It does not require an electrical hookup, so there's no electricity to worry about in order to make this thing operate. It's a beautifully designed system, don't get me wrong. Propane heaters are exceptionally high quality these days. And the systems that are built into them work even when the electricity goes off. So it's a really great heating system if it functions, if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you need to be able to get the parts so that you can make the repairs. One of the things that I've discovered is there's no such thing as standardized parts inside of these Buck stoves. Even within a single model and within a single year's production, there could be vast differences in the mechanics of how the thing works. About the only thing that seems to be consistent is the setup of the logs, which really doesn't have anything to do with how it produces heat, just the aesthetics. So we've got some work to do here on our heating system. We're going to have to figure this out. In the end, I do believe we're going to be pulling this Buck stove out of here. So if any of you guys want a Buck stove, let us know. We're going to have one that's going to be available and ready for sale here in a few months. We may have to use it to limp through the winter though. So those are our options. We can get this one repaired. Either I repair it or get a technician in. We can replace it. So I could pull this Buck stove out and go down and get a $200 simple space heater that runs on propane. That would also heat up the house. It just wouldn't look as nice in here. Or we can rip this out and we can put in a wood stove. Now we already have the chimney back here. It's already plumbed and ready to go. It has been used in the past to run a wood stove. So all we would need to do is remove this one, place a wood stove in here, and get it plumbed out to the chimney. And there are plenty of companies we could call that specialize in installing wood stoves, and they could come probably sometime in the next 3 to 6 months and install one for us. But we're homesteaders, so we got to figure out how to do this stuff ourselves. So we'll make some phone calls and see what we can do about the stove a little later on today. Right now, I need to get dressed and get out to get the chickens out. It did snow last night. Looks like we got maybe 2.5, 3 inches of snow on the ground. Not significant, but there were some other interesting things that the snow revealed to us that I want to share with you while we're out taking care of the chickens. Let's have a look. Well, temperature's already coming up and we're already starting to lose this, but you can see that we had a relatively large animal come across our front porch last night after the snow had started falling. These other smaller tracks here, that's Sunshine coming out to take care of her business this morning. But these tracks were laid down by something else. And it's hard to see any kind of a shape in those tracks at this point. I'm not really sure what animal left those. If you have any ideas for me, please share it in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. What kind of animal could have done that? And these tracks, not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's just going to be a rabbit hopping through here. Let's see what else we got out back. And this one's a little bit more disturbing because these come up the back stairs and up onto the back porch. And I'm pretty sure these are going to be a raccoon or a possum here. And we saw these from inside the house this morning. And we could tell, we knew why they were here. I had left a small bowl of seed out for small birds. So we like to feed the songbirds. I just left some seed out for them and something came up to get that seed off of the handrail while it was snowing last night. And that's definitely not going to be a rabbit. It's going to have to be something large enough at least to get up to the level of the handrail on its hind legs, a raccoon or a large possum. And they were out here by the chicken coop. So it's definitely cause for concern. And just as the snow was starting last night, Marty did say she heard the roosters out here making a bunch of racket. And that could explain why they were making a bunch of noise. So that's probably a raccoon we're seeing there. Let's see how the Silkies are doing this morning. So the Silkies seem to be doing fine this morning. They really hate the camera though. Just need to get them some fresh water and some more feed. Hopefully tomorrow we're going to get some electric netting that's supposed to be arriving. And with that electric netting, I'll be able to set up a safe yard for them out here. And we'll be able to let them out and let them start exploring their new environment. But in the meantime, they are safe, they are dry, and we just need to get food and water into them. And that brings us down into the barn where we still have this large kennel set up just inside of the door. One of the problems we were dealing with before we even made it to the property was that we had too many silky roosters. So we've still got several of those roosters out here in the barn. So we just need to harvest these roosters. We're going to use them for dog food. And we just haven't had the weather or circumstances that would give us the time to get that done. We knew that as we were moving in, there were going to be a lot of homesteading chores that were going to get put on hold while we got settled in. And this is one of them. So we'll get these roosters taken care of shortly. We've got all of our feed in place. At least it's up in safe buckets. You can see we've got some problems here at the barn. We've got water that's just sort of pushing out of the soil here, right in the inside of the barn. So that's one of the problems that having the kennel here has been for the Silkies. It's been really hard to keep that dry inside of there because this water just keeps infiltrating. And we've also got a buildup of water. We had to dig out a little bit to allow this door to open. This is a very old barn door, and it has been modified and reinstalled and corrected several times in the past, and it is in fairly good shape, actually, just sagging a little bit. It's sagging probably because these braces go the wrong direction. Those braces are not supporting the gate, or those braces are not supporting the door in the way that they should be. So we're going to have to make some improvements on this setup to get these doors so they don't sag. And that's all that's wrong with them, by the way, is this brace. This little V-shaped brace that's in here is going in the wrong direction. The one on the bottom is fine. The one up top is not supporting correctly. And so it's allowing things to sag. So we can get that corrected pretty easy. We'll just rebuild these doors and get them rehung. Probably get some new hinge hardware if these are rusted. Let's take a look at them. See, there's some pretty substantial hardware for these hinges. And I don't see a whole lot of rust. These are actually in fairly good shape. Not sure that the nails is the best way to put them into the post. Plus those nails, as we saw from the inside, don't actually go into the post. So it's surprising that this gate is actually hanging at all. But I think we need something a little more robust for a gate this size. Those hinges look to me a little bit undersized. Same on the other door. They're just looking a little undersized. And again, not secured into the post. So we may need to get some new hardware here for the doors for the barn, but easily correctable. And the wood is it's old, but it's all in solid pieces. It's not falling apart. Could use a coat of paint. But besides that, this wall's in fairly good shape. But right next to the barn is our storage shed. So we've got a lot of work here to do on the storage shed. So I think this was intended to be a tack room at one point. That's kind of what it looks like, and its location kind of suggests that's what it was for. They have added the porch, and this looks like the porch was added significantly after the building was put in. Probably within just the last few years, this bit of porch was put on it, and the porch was already old worn boards, probably old fence boards. So it's not in very good shape. Once again, here we have animals tracking through in the middle of the night. Snowstorms are always good to let you know who your neighbors really are. And this poor shed has seen better days. It looks like we've got some termite damage down here. It is on a solid concrete block, but I don't see any footers underneath the blocks. And I see a lot of water up underneath this building. So we're going to have to get this porch pulled off. Probably going to need to jack this building up, make sure we've got a solid seal plate and rim joists around the bottom here, and probably going to need to replace some of that flooring. Who knows on the walls? We won't know until I can get some of this metal off the outside, if there's any rot down at the bottom of the studs. And these eaves were never completely sealed up either, so they all need some attention. Painted OSB is not going to be sufficient over the long run. So we're going to have to find some way to get these eaves enclosed. But the structure is covered in metal. It is standing. It is keeping all of my tools dry at the moment. So we get this metal pulled off, get the building jacked up a little bit. Probably end up having to pour some footers up underneath the corners anyway. It would be best if I had footers halfway through and also in the middle. But we'll probably have to content ourselves with good solid corners to support the building on. I don't see that it's leaning or falling apart in many places. We do have one corner up here of the roof that is pretty well shot. That's going to all need to be ripped out. All this wasted OSB, that's just a great big sponge sitting up there now, so all of that's going to have to come off. So we got a little work to do here in the spring to get this building up and operational as a storage shed. But hey, there's a shed here, and we're homesteaders. We try to make do with what we find. And then right off the back porch of the barn here is the chicken run. This was our very first project, was just getting this chicken run secured. Chickens do use it daily. They enjoy being outside. They would prefer to be out on pasture. So they give me grief. The rooster gives me dirty looks every time I let him out here, and he can't get out there to the grass. But here shortly, we'll be able to get them out there. I just got to get some fencing in place to be able to protect them from the neighbor's dogs, since they're just right there, only about 50 feet away to the fence line. In the meantime, they are safe and secure in their coop. They don't really mind the cold. The chickens have got plenty of feathers to keep them warm. So their big concern is just keeping the wind off of them. So if we leave them out while they're sleeping and they get in a draft of wind where they're constantly being blown on all night long, we could have some issues. But they're inside the barn. Everything seems to be relatively tight. Still has plenty of ventilation. Chickens are doing well, by the way. They didn't look so good when we moved them here. They were in the middle of molting when we moved. So most of them looked pretty scrawny and scraggly by the time we got them here. Right before we left our last homestead, too, we also had some red-tailed hawks that were harassing our chickens. So several of these ladies were missing feathers on their backs, and they had some scratch marks where they'd had an encounter with a hawk. And that's just part of being a homesteader. You have to deal with the predators in the environment. Sometimes the hawks do get the chickens. Ayo, Rocky. Let's see if we can get Rocky to come out. He's been a little bit camera shy this morning. There he comes. So even Rocky was looking a little bit rough, and he's got all his feathers back in. Everybody's looking healthy and hearty. They're all pecking and scratching around looking for some scratch grains, so I'm gonna go get some for them. Watch out, ladies. As cold as it is, their water's not frozen, so they've got plenty of water to work with right now. That's really all there is to taking care of chickens, y'all. Give them a dry place to sleep. Give them a safe and secure place to eat and forage. If you can't let them out so that they can find their own food, you got to provide a little food for them. And they need some water. I know we talk to people all the time who look at our chickens and they say, we wish we could have chickens like you do, but we just don't have the time. And the reality is this is about maybe 30 minutes worth of work every day. I had to just come out here and make sure they're fed and watered. And there are ways to set these systems up so that you don't have to come out quite so often as well. And it's deciding just how far to go with those other systems that Marty and I are taking a look at right now. That's kind of where we're at. I mean, we have systems that are working, they're functional. We've got chickens that are being fed, they're laying some eggs. We've actually gotten 2 eggs in the last week. So these guys are laying eggs again. The rooster seems to be happy. He's crowing again. He had stopped crowing when we moved, but he's back to crowing again. So everything's working just fine in here. Why would we do anything different? And there are some things we could do. I could add a door with a photocell on it so that when the sun comes up, the door opens automatically to let the chickens out and closes automatically at the end of the day to put the chickens away. If you add a door like that, you don't have to come out and open the door like I just did to let them out. And you can save yourself a little bit of time in the morning. We also have J-tube feeders inside of the coop, so I can put a lot of feed out and keep them in feed for probably a couple of days with just the 2 feeders that are in there. So I don't have to spend 30 minutes every day taking care of food. I could also, and do plan to, put in water catchment. So we've got a lot of steel overhead, there's lots of rain coming off, and we can catch all of that, put it in a water barrel, and then figure out a way to distribute that down to the chickens. And they could automatically be watered every day and not need my attention for water. So there are a lot of things we could do, and there are options that make this really easy. The thing is, that's not exactly how homesteaders work. You know, if you wait around for that perfect opportunity when you have enough money to go out and buy all of the materials and all of the automatic doors and automatic feeders and automatic waterers and electric waterers to keep the water from freezing in the winter, you can homestead or raise chickens anyway without putting in any extra work. If you put those systems in place, you can simply come out and collect the eggs every day. The chickens will take care of themselves on those systems. All you have to do is make sure they keep operating. But again, that's not how homesteaders work. When you're homesteading, you're taking advantage of what you find on site. You're leveraging every single resource that you have, whether it's for building or construction or food. You don't waste anything. And you take it as far as you can along with your labor. It's going to take some work. It's going to take some effort. And like we were talking about with the buck stove, we're going to make the phone calls. We're going to try to find a technician. I don't expect to find one. That's just the state of the world we live in, guys. There is nobody out there who can fix your unique piece of equipment. They are not going to come to rescue you when it stops working. You're going to have to fix it yourself. And if you're capable and have the tools, it's oftentimes just a question of putting in the labor. You got to spend the time to understand the system and how it needs to be repaired, and then you got to get the parts and actually install them. It's simple, but it's not easy. Homesteading life is not for everybody, I get that. But the basics of homesteading should be for everybody. And those basics are take care of your own needs first, right? That's exactly what was presented to Adam and Eve in the garden. First Adam, he was given a simple task, take care of the garden. That was his job, just to take care of the garden. Then God decided he needed a helpmeet, and he got Eve, and they were given a new command. But the old one wasn't taken away. They were still supposed to take care of the garden. And as they tended that garden, they were supposed to be fruitful and multiply and spread out across the earth. But they were supposed to continue tending the garden. And that's all we're suggesting that everyone needs to start doing. Maybe you're not a homesteader, but if you enjoy eating like I do, you might have noticed over the last few years that some odd things have happened in the food supply. And I think it's impossible at this point not to notice that things like fast food restaurants, they're just not producing the same quality of food that they used to. Then you find out about all the genetically modified and even lab-grown products that they're starting to put into your food supply, and it makes you wonder just how long we can survive on chemically based foods. Me, I want to eat good fresh foods. I want to have fresh eggs. I want to know where those eggs came from. I'm not interested in any kind of an egg supplement or egg substitute. There is nothing wrong with the package that comes right out of the chicken. And that's really the essence or the heart of what homesteading is all about. It's about being self-sufficient, about taking care of your own first basic needs. Where are you going to get your water? Where are you going to get your food? And how are you going to keep yourself warm in the wintertime? So homesteading is really, it's about taking advantage of what's there and figuring out where to put your effort, your labor to fix, repair, improve those systems that you have in place that take care of your basic needs. When I say basic needs, I'm referring to the most basic: food, water, shelter, if possible, clothing. That one's a little harder to do, right? It's a little harder to make your own fabric than it is to make your own tortillas. You can grow corn or wheat and grind it and make a flour and then press those into tortillas and cook them. But it's a little harder to grow cotton and get all the seeds out of it and stretch it out into threads and then use those threads to weave a piece of fabric. So there are some advancements that society has provided that we take full advantage of, even here on the homestead. I'm not going to waste my day trying to figure out how to make a pair of blue jeans when I can run down to Costco and I can buy a pair of blue jeans for about 15 bucks. So obviously there are some advantages to having groups that can get together to make things like clothing. But we don't want to sacrifice all of our freedoms and all of our responsibilities to take care of ourselves to the group. There's a lot of good reasons for that. Everybody's seen one of those just in the last few months. This last year we had a brand new president that brought in a completely different and new approach. It was something entirely radical, and the system that used to support everyone changed. And so there's been a lot of commotion and a lot of turmoil that comes out of that kind of change, and those systems are just that fragile. If you can upset the entire country just by changing the president, imagine what can happen if one company suddenly goes bankrupt in a major industry. And we saw that in 2008 when they had to go in and rescue all of the banks for having made bad investments. And instead of punishing them for their foolish actions, we rewarded them and allowed them to continue to do what they've been doing. When I see things like that, that's what makes me want to buy land as far away from other people as I can, and to learn how to use that land to meet some of my basic needs so that I don't have to struggle for food or water or shelter in the event that things go seriously wrong. So am I saying that you should homestead so that you're prepared for the coming apocalypse? Yeah, maybe, if you think an apocalypse is coming. But more than that, I think you should buy some land and put your labor into taking care of your own needs so that you can return to life. all of the stress that's caused by worrying about what other people are doing is robbing you of your ability to take advantage of the moment and enjoy this moment that you have right now. And that's really what the return to life is all about for us. There are lots of opportunities throughout any given day to just stop, take a deep breath, appreciate where you are, be thankful and grateful for all that you have. When Marty and I sit down and we start talking about and listing all of what God has blessed us with here on this property, and really this all came together in a matter of a month's time. It wasn't something that we worked on long and hard to figure out that this was the right property and exactly how to go about acquiring it. That was all happening so fast that it could only be attributed to God's guidance and direction that we wound up in a place where we have everything that we need. And many things that we didn't even know we need are here and they're ready for us. But part of that is that we know how to take advantage of what we find. It's really about having a homesteader's mentality, having that basic drive inside of you that says, I'm not willing to leave my health, safety, and security up to someone else. I'm not going to give that over to a government. I'm not going to give that over to a neighbor, a spouse, a boss, nobody. I'm going to be responsible for my basic needs. I do believe that if you apply yourself correctly with that attitude, God will bless that. He will make sure that you have everything that you need and other stuff besides. It's what He promises. So we're going to settle in here on this property and dedicate ourselves to working the land. That's what we've been told to do, so that's what we're going to get busy doing. And then day by day we'll adjust and adapt. Today we've got to deal with a fireplace that's not working. Tomorrow we'll probably be back on looking at chickens again. And day to day, we just follow whatever is the next thing that needs to be done. That's what we go out and do. And that's homesteading. And of course, you want to have some long-term projects to work on as well. You've got to have some sort of a purpose, something that you're shooting toward. So you need long-term ideas of what you might do. We've been examining what we need in the way of buildings. I've been thinking about what I might need in the way of a tractor. Other machinery that might be necessary for us to operate the farm correctly and to be able to get the most out of the effort we're putting in. And we're looking at other buildings we might need. The storage buildings may not be enough. I'd love to have a wood shop. I need a shop and a covered area where I can work on machinery and vehicles. So there's a lot of work that we still need to do, and the only way those things are going to happen is if we plan for them and we start taking steps necessary to make them happen. And one of those things is taking advantage of what's already on site, like chicken coops. And it would be easy if you've never been on a farm, never dealt with chickens, to take a look at a setup like this and think, oh my, this is terrible and horrible. It's so broken and dirty and hodgepodge. And yeah, it's perfectly functional. The chickens are secure, the chickens are well ventilated, the chickens are dry, and they seem pretty happy with their new digs. So don't let the look of something determine for you its value. The value it has on the homestead is what it can accomplish for your basic needs. This weather's supposed to roll on off. We've got some things we need to get out and do tomorrow, so we're hoping that most of the snow just melts away today. Not really sure about our driveway. It does not have enough gravel on it. It is holding water at the moment. We obviously need to get a couple of loads of gravel on this thing and have it attended to. Again, that's one of those things you can't do easily for yourself. It'd be really hard to collect gravel out of the stream bed to cover a driveway this size. So there are advantages to having groups of people around you, where there's businesses that can take care of things like collecting gravel out of a quarry and bringing it out to your property where you can build a driveway out of it. That doesn't mean that everything society produces is good or valuable for us, and it's a question of making those determinations. Asking yourself the question, what are you willing to pay for, and how much are you willing to pay? And that brings us back inside. We told you we're going to make some phone calls, and I went ahead and made those phone calls. I didn't have high hopes for what we were going to find out when I made the calls, and unfortunately I discovered exactly what I expected. So we called the local distributor for the Buck stoves, and they're the guys I would have expected to provide the best information. They immediately, as I was explaining my problem, cut me off and said, "We don't have any technicians, but here, you can call this guy." They gave me another phone number. It took a while for that gentleman to call me back, but he did call me. And not only did he call me, but he gave me a lot of good information about what's going on in the industry around these stoves, but also about what I should expect as far as being able to get this repaired. He wasn't going to be able to help me, and only because I'm just not in his range. Now, if I was about 15 miles closer to the major city where he services, he would have been happy to come out and take care of it. It would have just been sometime in March before he could get to us. So that was not going to work out either way. He was kind enough to explain to me all the troubleshooting that I could do, and he described all of the repairs that would most likely correct the problem. So I'm comfortable with all the work that I'll need to do in order to get this thing fixed. But that was the long and short of it, is I'm going to have to be the one who fixes this. There is no one else for him to refer me to. In fact, he said you could and probably should call a propane person to come out and check all of those lines and make sure all of your pressures are correct, but the chances are they're just going to mess up your stove and make it worse than it is. So he had no confidence in that industry either. That's just the world we live in now. We've reached a point where if you want to have a propane stove in your home and you want it to work, you're going to have to know how to install it and fix it. And that's all homesteading's been about. That's why we've been encouraging you guys to return to the land, return to labor, and return to life. Soon you're not going to have any options. We do appreciate you joining us on the Return Homestead. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please take a moment and do that. And while you've got that window open, hit that thumbs up icon. That lets the algorithm know you enjoyed the video, and they'll share it out with more people. At least that's what they tell us. The reality is they're not. YouTube hasn't been sharing out our videos with anyone. We've been completely cut off, and all of the traffic that we get, we have to generate. So we're asking those of you who are loyal and have been watching us for a while, hey, share the word out there. Tell other people that we have returned to the land, the labor, and the life. We love what we're finding out here. We just want to show you guys how you can get out here as well. We'll see you next time.